Muse. This is a game of limited communication published by Quick, Simple, Fun Games. It has pretty impressive art, as you can already see from the cover. It is mainly for at least 4 players, so that is, a team tries to communicate with other team members. So usually you need at least 2 teams or 2 players, but there's also a cooperative version that can be played with 2 or 3 players. The game revolves around a deck of tarot-size cards. These cards are called the masterpieces, and they are indeed pretty impressive for visual richness, creativity. There's just very interesting art, a huge variety of themes, with some being very visually complex, other more linear, more like a clear subject, and others are just visual madness. Very nice art. I'm spending some time showing you these masterpieces because they are really the key, the heart of the game. Now, and then you have another deck of cards that are the clue cards. And these are the clue cards. Each indicates a specific single thing that can be used to communicate with your team members, and in particular to single out one of those masterpiece cards from a group of 6 I mean. And the rules are very simple. These are the entire rules for the regular competitive team-based game, the one that you need at least 4 players to play, and then these are the rules for the 2 or 3 players cooperative variant. Let's talk about the main game in which you have teams. One team will draw 2 cards randomly from the clue deck and 6 cards randomly from this other, the masterpiece deck. This team will then choose a single clue, suppose this one here, or no, let's think of this one. Let's suppose this one here. They'll choose a single clue, and from the masterpieces we'll choose 1. And then they will give this single clue and this single masterpiece face down to a member of the other team, which is the Muse. That player will look at these cards secretly and then will think of a clue to signify, to indicate this card to the other members of their own team. For example, I see here the teapot is kind of prominent, and I'm thinking then Alice in Wonderland. Name a movie released in the last 50 years. I think the Disney movie was less than 50 years ago. Well, a published book. Alice in Wonderland. Let's say that this was the set that I was given. I'm thinking about Alice in Wonderland. Now I'm giving, when this is done, this card is revealed, and the clue is also revealed, but not the masterpiece. I'm telling my team members, Alice in Wonderland. The card is now returned to the team that selected the card and the clue, and is shuffled with the other ones. And now the 6 cards are revealed to my team. Suppose the team is sitting there, but now I'm showing them to you. So basically, the team of the player that received the clue has that clue, Alice in Wonderland. And now that team is showed all 6 cards, and from that clue alone, Alice in Wonderland, they have to identify which is the card that the Muse originally seen. The Muse is not allowed to add anything. They can only repeat the clue that they had devised before, Alice in Wonderland. And now that team, based only on that indication, Alice in Wonderland, they had to figure out what was the card that the Muse originally saw. And I'm thinking, oh, the teapot, that reminds me of Alice in Wonderland because of the Mad Hatter mainly. But then, there's also this other card that the Muse did not see, but the players selecting the clue and the masterpiece did see. I'm thinking, well, there is a single female figure here. There's a crown that reminds me of the queen. Wait a second, there's also a bunch of like weird little weirdos, critters, and somehow I associate could be Alice in Wonderland. And yeah, we do have a single traveler in this weird, threatening landscape. And so basically that is the thing. If the team where that has been presented with the puzzle to solve, the team with the muse trying to communicate guesses the right card, they keep the card as a scoring, just as a way of keeping score. If that team messes up, makes a mistake, they say, okay, I think this is the card that the muse is trying to communicate, but it was this one. Then the other team, the one that selected the masterpiece and the clue, and then we could say set the trap, keeps this card. And then the roles switch. Now it is the other team that sets up the trap, that sets up the situation. It is this team now that is trying to guess. So that team now will receive 2 clues and 6 cards, and is trying to create a situation which is as hard as possible, because of course you want your opponents to fail. Basically the trick here, really the key of the game, is to figure out a trap, because the team that sets up the situation and sends a clue and a card to the muse of the other team knows what the things are. So I'm trying to figure out a clue and a card that I think the muse will put together in a certain clue, but that then that clue will be confusing or misleading when the whole 6 cards are showed to the other team. Let's give an example. For example, name a non-fictional article or clothing, or name a game released in 20 years. Look at these 6 cards and think of what the muse will come up with. Because I'm thinking, if I'm given this and this to the muse, game published in the last 20 years, and this one, let's see, my first instinct would be Fireball Island. Fireball Island is from the 80s, so would not apply. But then it is getting a reprint, so maybe that would be it. So maybe that is what I'm trying to do. I'm giving them these things, and I'm hoping that, I don't know, that they will do Fireball Island, but then they will say, no, that's not in the last 20 years, so that would not really work. Something about planting things, balloons. Well, for example, there is a game published by TMG Games, which is Balloon Pop. So if they give me these 2 things, I could think of those 2 things. And it's not the most known game. Maybe my teammate don't know it, maybe the people that give me these clues don't know it. But that would be good, because then I can demonstrate that that is the case. Chicken Run? No, that's a movie, that's not a game. So basically this is the idea. You're trying to Takenoko, just because this reminds me of Asia, but that of course is a pretty loose thing. So basically I'm trying to create a situation which is as ambiguous as possible. And I'm drawing a little bit of a blank of what could be an optimal thing. Let me give you an example though. There are some that are really, there's one which is about a color. Suppose that is the clue that I give to the opponent. Hum a melody, name a fictional character, and of course I can't find the color one. Well, suppose I'm giving my opponents a clue which is the muse of the other team, like name a color, and that's all I can give you. And then a lot of cards, like 3 of those cards have that color palette, and the other ones don't. Suppose that these 6 cards have been randomly selected, and I'm basically giving, and I'm be selected. And so from these things we have to choose a clue, and we choose the clue name a color, and we give this card to the other team. So the muse has this card and the color clue, and they're thinking, okay, I'm thinking orange, pink, yellow. So I'm saying orange. Then the team with the muse is giving the clue orange, but then they reveal these 6 cards. Okay, basically now the team has orange and they have to identify this card. It's basically a 50% guess. Now you can go meta. When I receive as the muse this card and orange, I'm thinking that there are going to be a lot of things that have orange. So maybe I'm saying white, which is still pretty prominent, but not as obvious. Heck, maybe I'm choosing black because I'm thinking my team will know that I would not give them that clue. But then if I can say black or another dark color here, then of course we had these are 3 cards that have a darker overall tone. White, well, here there's the chicken and there's some white. Here the background is light enough that could count as white. Isn't there a white area here? My point is, there will be situations in which you set up a trap. And so that's interesting because there will be something that is prominent, but then it will turn out to be pretty obvious. And the trap is fun and the opponents will be stuck. Like pretty much there's no way they can figure out the trap. Or there's a trap that is set up and the Muse is kind of able to foresee it and figure out a really smart way of doing it, and that is when the game is at its best. A team sets up a trap and the other team doesn't fall for it. Then you have lateral thinking, bluffing, I think that they're thinking, very rewarding. But pretty much my complaint with the game is that there is a huge random element, which will be based really on the clues that are available and the cards that are available. Sometimes there will be traps that are obvious and pretty much unbreakable. By seeing the 6 cards and selecting one clue, I know almost certainly what the Muse will select. And I know that when the cards are actually seen will be completely misleading. So certain times the game goes on autopilot because the people that are selecting the masterpiece and the clue have a very easy job seeing what will happen, what the Muse will select as a clue, and how that will be impossible to break. On one hand, for the team preparing the trap, there is fun in doing that, but sometimes that is obvious. So again, it's obvious what trap will be unbreakable and unbeatable for the other team. And then the thing plays itself out. Other times you have situations which will be completely ambiguous, both from the point of view of who sets up the situation, and the Muse is like, I don't know. And the final result will be basically random. That is to say, I have a little bit of mixed feelings about the game because I like the general idea and I love the art. It's so imaginative, so beautiful. Such interesting, surreal situation. What is this? A dwarf from Lord of the Rings? A muscle man toy? Remember those toys from the 80s? That's the first thing I'm thinking of, but it's a pretty specialized thing. Beach could be an option, of course, because is this a sand? Does it remind me of a sand? But then, of course, beach, it could be this one too. Is this a beach? Not really, although if you think of a desert, but if you look close enough, is that a bit of a bay in the back? Beach, I guess this one. Oh, if it was for about a game, and this card, I would say Catan. But then, of course, again, there could be a trap there. Because then I'm thinking, okay, Catan. But then when the clues are revealed, maybe turn out that the 6 of them are these. And then this one also reminds me of an island that somebody may be developing. And of course, there is a card with sheep and wood that creates a trap. So this is one of my favorite cards, like Humpty Dumpty going to the hospital. That's how I interpret it. And then butter. Butter could be a clue. I have mixed feelings because I like the general idea and I like games that stimulate creative thinking, lateral thinking, etc., etc. But the selections of the cards, the random selection of the 6 cards and 2 clues sometimes make the situation very easy, sometimes absolutely impossible for the team trying to guess, and sometimes it's a 50% chance, and that's it. You say, like, you know what, it's good enough. They get 3 cards and it's impossible to discriminate which of the 3 will be. 3 out of 6, so we give them a 50% chance. So it seems to me there is too much of a random element. It's not a situation that I feel is really meritocratic, like if I'm good enough, I'm gonna create a good trap. If I am not all that good, my trap will be weak. I feel that the random cards that you get have a huge role in that. And maybe this effect is given by the fact that we played this game right after we played the Crypto, which also is a game about secret, misleading, creative communication, limited communication, and this one is so much about what you do with the clue as opposed to which clues you are handed. This being said, I am probably the player that has the most mixed feelings. Other people really enjoyed it, actually, because we played after the crypto, which is such an intense game. This can get so Byzantine and so cerebral. Players like the idea of having that general idea with a change of gears, much easier, much simpler, much more casual. So this is a game about limited communication, which has a much more casual tone, more beautiful components, say the crypto. But gameplay-wise, I found it weaker. But again, I have to report, I seem to be the player in my group that enjoyed it the least. And I still enjoyed it a bit. I still enjoyed it as a casual game. I thought there was too much randomness, but I did not hate it. As more of a filler type of game with this structure. So I didn't like it all that much. Other players in my team really like, in my group, really like the idea of setting up the trap, and if sometimes it doesn't work and sometimes it's too random, que sera, sera. So I have to say, it's not my favorite game. When it comes to games of this type, if I can, I will play the crypto. But if I'm with a group of casual players that don't mind too much about gameplay that feels a little loose to me, then Muse, I'm glad to have it in my collection as an option of a game that maybe would not be my favorite, but I think there are situations in which players will enjoy it very much and will like it even better than the crypto or other games of this kind. So it looks good, and with certain groups, it may work very well. I'm just reporting that I'm not probably a group of, you know, the intended target. It's not the group that will I'm not the player that will find it, oh, the best game of this kind. But some players I played it with did find it to be excellent, and so that's my little bit self-conflicting, conclusion. Some people will like it, some people won't. I'm sorry if it sounds a little vague, but that's my experience after playing Muse.